So welcome everybody. My name is Rebecca Glvan. I am the Vice President of Rutgers AAUP-AFT, the Union of Full-Time Faculty and Grad Workers at Rutgers University, and I'm an Associate Professor in the School of Management and Labor Relations. And I want to welcome you all. 50 years ago, as a member of the law faculty here at Rutgers, Professor Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as she then was, had to sue to achieve pay equity with her male colleagues. Today, we are still fighting for pay equity. Over the last several years, our union has fought hard for a new contract. We placed equity at the center of our fight because we know it matters most to our members and to our broader community. We signed a contract in 2019 that achieved equity, security, and dignity. This contract included a groundbreaking pay equity program. While Rutgers initially resisted the program in bargaining, the university eventually embraced it, and we were optimistic about creating a strong process and achieving equity. Once the program launched, the Barchi administration dragged their heels. This was long before the pandemic. It was a gut punch that they felt no urgency, and they proposed pay outcomes that maintained inequities while they engaged the notoriously anti-worker law firm Jackson Lewis to assist them in this process. Our faculty engaged in this pay equity process in good faith. They exercised extraordinary patience as the new program was forged. Our union offered advice, expertise, and good faith extensions of deadlines in order to achieve what we thought was a common goal of true equity. Instead, the designees of the Barchi administration put this process on the back burner and shunned expertise, consistently leaving recommendations in the hands of those with little understanding of faculty work and faculty pay. Ultimately, our plaintiffs were waiting and waiting with no indication that any eventual outcome would be truly equitable. These women who you'll hear from, these 5 plaintiffs, have invested decades of their lives in Rutgers, but Rutgers has not invested in them. Or rather, Rutgers has invested in them at a discounted rate. None of these women preferred to pursue litigation. They all love their jobs, their work, and their students. They have dedicated themselves to the mission of the university. Their achievements are staggering. They inspire me in their accomplishments in the areas of research, teaching, and service. And they are not here for themselves, but on behalf of all who are paid inequitably at Rutgers, many of whom don't have the protection of tenure. Under the Jonathan Holloway regime, we hope that the president's commitment to equity and community and the elevation of Anna Branch to the position of Senior Vice President for Equity will mean we can finally achieve true equity. Our union continues to stand ready to work with the university to implement a pay equity program and create a fair and equitable Rutgers, of which we can all be proud. Having failed to achieve equity through the university's pay equity program, and after waiting patiently, these women have brought their suit under New Jersey's Diane B. Allen Equal Pay Act, signed by Governor Murphy in April of 2018. Diane Allen was a longtime Republican state senator, and before that, a Philadelphia news broadcaster who was chronically underpaid compared to her male peers. Lily Ledbetter attended the signing of this bill. As a union, we have fought for equity, security, and dignity. We have demanded a people-centered approach to the pandemic, one that protects the vulnerable and supports the core mission of the university. Welcome to all of you today. A little bit on the mechanics of the press conference, and then I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers. We'll be hearing first from my colleague on the AAUP-AFT Executive Council, Dr. Nikol Alexander-Floyd, and then we'll hear from 3 of our plaintiffs. After the presentations, you'll have a chance to ask questions. You can use the Q&A window to ask a question. If you want, you can let us know if you'd like to direct it to someone in particular, and we'll move you up, make you a panelist on Zoom, and allow you to ask the question out loud and on camera. We'll also share some links in the chat so that you can follow up, find out more about our speakers, and check on more information. We will try to get to all of your questions. The press conference recording will also be available later, and we're also streaming live on Facebook, so welcome to anybody who is watching there. Our first speaker is Professor Nikol Alexander-Floyd. She's an associate professor in the Department of Political Science in the School of Arts and Sciences at Rutgers. She's a member of the AAUP-AFT Executive Council. Nikol is a lawyer and a political scientist and an expert in the intersection of gender and race. Nikol, thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. I am so happy to be here on this morning to support the plaintiffs in this case. In 2016, Rutgers University celebrated 250 years. We celebrated that great benchmark with the slogan, Rutgers, we've always been revolutionary. In that context, we underscored that Rutgers University was a part of the best of the origins of this nation, our longevity, our commitment to excellence, integrity, and upholding the highest ideals of democracy. And so today, we are gathered to actually step forward in that tradition of revolutionary action. As we all know, with the death of George Floyd, with his merciless killing, we saw protests that sparked not only here in the United States, but indeed across the globe. The battle cry of Black Lives Matter is something that we are hearing in boardrooms, in schools, in every place where we gather and where we actually come together as human beings. This racial reckoning is long overdue. It's causing us to take a hard look at the difference between the rhetoric and the reality of social justice in this country. Political scientist Andra Gillespie pointed out that few would have ever guessed that in the closing years of the administration of the very first president, who was African American, that we would have people drawing attention to police violence, to the battle cry of Black Lives Matter. For some of us, the idea that we were in a post-racial or post-feminist moment really was something that took hold. But we know that we have broken some barriers. There is a difference, however, between formal equality and substantive equality. Formal equality is not enough. We need equity. It's not enough for us to have new faces in new places and have the same old business as usual operating. So today represents a call to action that many of us answered at Rutgers University. As part of our anniversary celebration, there were many people who came together to take a look at our history. And amazing scholars such as distinguished Professor Mary Hawksworth, as well as the late distinguished Professor Cheryl Wall, investigated our history around race and gender equity. What they found was simply astounding. They learned that we actually have fewer Black and Latinx professors now at Rutgers than we did in the early 70s. How could that be? Today, we only have 4.6% of faculty members at Rutgers who are Black. I'm one of that number. In terms of Latinx professors, we only have 4.3%. And this is happening at a time when New Jersey, this great state, is becoming more and more diverse. What's more, there is a tremendous gap in terms of how people are being paid along gender lines and along lines of race. So we decided to do something about it. Over a half decade ago, we actually did a study so that we can get even more details about what's actually happening at Rutgers University. And as our vice president mentioned in her comments, we developed a campaign based on equity, security, and dignity for all workers. People said that what we were asking for couldn't be done. They said it had no place in terms of what we should expect in our workplace. But we knew that what we were asking for was the right thing. We got on the same page. We came together in a place of unity, and we put our hands to the plow, and we have not looked back. We marched, we met, we picketed, we had town halls, we had countless conversations, dozens of negotiations. It took over 1.5 years, and we even had to do the very hard work of preparing for a strike. And guess what? We won. We won. We came together and we did it. And I know that Ruth Bader Ginsburg would be proud of that great win. Now, we're dealing with this situation. The prior administration didn't follow through on its word. Contractually, people are supposed to get a response within 90 days after they make a pay equity claim. Some people have been waiting for over 150 days. This is simply unacceptable. Now, I know that we're in the middle of a pandemic and times are hard. First, if the Barchi administration had kept its word, many of these claims could have been settled before the pandemic. What's more, secondly, although we are suffering in this pandemic, we're not all suffering equally. Rutgers has the resources. Workers from all walks of life came together at this university, and we worked with the state legislature, and we actually won back $100 million for our budget. Workers did that. It turns out we've actually only lost $85 million because of COVID so far. Tuition has remained steady. And as we've pointed out time and time again, the unrestricted reserves are there for us to use. As of 2019, 2020, there are $765.6 million that Rutgers has in unrestricted reserves. It's always time to do the right thing. And see, and here's why this is important and why it's truly revolutionary. Rutgers has a special role to play. The state of New Jersey is blessed with many great universities, but we are Rutgers, the state university of New Jersey, the flagship. What happens here is going to impact what happens in higher education throughout the state. So we know that if we can continue to move forward with our historic quest, that it will have repercussions and implications, not just for us, but for all workers. When I teach students about the law, I underscore the importance of precedents in our legal system. So this is going to impact not only workers at Rutgers, but other schools and other public sector workers. And of course, private sector workers as well. It'll impact the culture throughout this great state and the expectations that we have. If you get a paycheck, then you have a stake today in this historic suit. And of course, this great state of New Jersey is a leader among states in this nation. And eyes are upon us to see what will happen here. So I encourage you to listen to the plaintiffs who will speak during the press conference. If you have questions, reach out to us because we want to talk about our future. Please support us in this endeavor because we are going to build back, not only better, but forward. We decided to do something. We're here. And as I said earlier, We have put our hands to the plow and we're not looking back. Join us as we move forward to make sure that workers have what it is that they deserve. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Alexander-Floyd, Nikol, for your really powerful words and reminding us of the significance of what we're doing and why we're here today. We're going to hear from 3 of our plaintiffs. Their accomplishments are truly staggering. I can think of no other word for it. These are people who have committed their work, their research, their teaching, their lives really to Rutgers and our whole community. And you'll hear a little bit about their achievements, but also their motivation and why they're here in front of you all today and why they are plaintiffs in this suit. The first plaintiff I want to introduce is Professor Deepa Kumar. She's Professor of Journalism and Media Studies in the School of Communication and Information. She's been at Rutgers University for 16 years. Deepa is an award-winning scholar and public intellectual. She's the author of numerous acclaimed books and articles, and she's an expert in areas such as neoliberalism and globalization, Islamophobia and empire, and gender, race, class, and empire in the media. So Deepa, thank you.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you, Nikol, for that incredible speech you just gave. That is not just Dr. Alexander-Floyd, it is the Reverend Dr. Alexander-Floyd. So thank you, my sister. So my name is Deepa Kumar. I am a professor of media studies at the School of Communication and Information. I was promoted to full professor this past June. I'm also the immediate past president of the Rutgers AAUP-AFT. I was asked to say a little bit about my credentials, so here goes. I am, as Becky said, a scholar of gender, race, and class with an expertise in Islamophobia. I have over 75 publications, which include books, journal articles, book chapters, and articles in mainstream and independent media. I've won several national awards, as well as Rutgers Awards for my scholarship and service. My work has been translated into 8 languages and is read around the world. I've also been sought out as an expert and given over 200 news media interviews for global and national outlets, from the BBC to the Danish Broadcasting Corporation and NPR. Enough about that. I joined Rutgers in 2004 as an assistant professor. I was part of a cohort of 5 colleagues, all of them white men and women, except for me, of course, who were hired around the same time at Sky. I will say that I started with a good salary, higher in fact than several of these colleagues, because I had 4 years of seniority, having taught at Wake Forest University before coming here to Rutgers. However, in slightly over a decade, I had fallen to the lowest paid in this cohort. My salary was on average $13,500 less than the other members of the cohort. This is despite the fact that my accomplishments matched and in several cases exceeded those of my peers. During this time, the School of Communication and Information also lost a number of faculty of color. Sky, as it's called, has what is called a revolving door with faculty of color. So for instance, in 2012, there were 6 tenured and tenure track faculty of color at Sky. By 2020, 5 of those faculty had left. Now we have since hired new faculty of color. However, out of a total of 42 tenured and tenure track faculty at Sky, there are only 2 tenured faculty of color, 1 associate professor and 1 full professor, me. In fact, I am the first person of color to be promoted to full professor in the entire history of the School of Communication and Information. With such a climate, it's been hard to win pay equity for myself. When I first approached my dean after I got tenure back in 2010 to ask for a salary adjustment, I was told that the only way that this would be possible is if I got a job offer from another university. And then as part of a retention offer, my salary could potentially be increased. Now, it is well documented that women are not as mobile as men, because they have husbands or partners who cannot move, or they have family members who require care, such as elderly parents or young children. And when this is presented as the only mechanism by which women can achieve salary parity, they lose out. Also, this is a game that many of us are unwilling to play. Unless we are serious about moving, we do not want to waste our time, as well as the time of colleagues at other schools, applying for jobs we don't intend to take just to get an equity correction in our salaries. We believe that loyalty to an institution should be rewarded. In 2018, Cambridge University approached me to apply for a full professor position. I was honored that I had come to the attention of one of the leading universities in the world and was part of a handful of scholars who were invited to apply. Last year, another university offered me an endowed chair position, which is quite a prestigious distinction. Yet I was given a $6,000 salary increase as part of a retention offer. This stands in stark contrast to a white male in my cohort who was offered slightly more than $22,000 over a decade ago for an assistant professor position. Also, other white faculty at my rank in the last 4 years have received at least $14,500 in salary increases in their retention offers, and none of these were for endowed chair positions. Now, don't get me wrong, my colleagues are excellent scholars and teachers and dedicated to service, and they deserve every penny that they have earned. My point is, so do I. This is a fundamental question of equity, equal pay for equal work. Let me explain concretely what pay and equity means over the course of a career. In the last 12 years, I would estimate that I have lost over $300,000 in earnings because I haven't been paid what I should have been. This has real consequences for my social security, for pensions, for my savings. It has an impact also at the rate at which I pay my loans, when I'm able to retire, and how much I'm able to support members of my family. I am a plaintiff in this lawsuit because I don't want to see others go through what I have gone through. In my time as an officer of this union, I have attempted to help many colleagues, not coincidentally, mostly women, but some men too, with similar pay equity struggles. And I can speak both for them and myself when I say that it is distressing, humiliating, and frustrating to be paid and valued less because of gender or a combination of gender and race factors. I mean, I wanted to say that because, I'm more comfortable talking about intellectual things, about research, about statistics, but there are real human beings behind these statistics, and it's important that we know their stories and the pain that they have felt at not being treated equally. At any rate, all of these experiences is why I spearheaded and led a program of gender and race equity as president of the AAUP-AFT. There were many dimensions to this program, and salary equity was a key part. So to make our case for salary equity, I asked Professor Mark Killingsworth, who's an economics professor trained at the University of Oxford, to study gender inequities. Professor Killingsworth found that there were systematic pay differences between male and female faculty. We presented this hard data at the bargaining table, but to no avail. As David Hughes, the chair of our bargaining committee, put it, quote, management refused to accept that there were structural problems. They even argued that there are cases when women should earn less because they have less accomplishments than their male counterparts, end quote. But our faculty wouldn't have this. They were ready to go on strike for this and other issues, as Nikol pointed out earlier. And on the brink of a strike last year, we achieved a historic agreement. The pay equity part of our contract is truly significant for all the reasons that Nikol mentioned, but I'll just state two. First, I don't believe that any other higher institution of higher education has such protections. So this sets a precedent that could strike a blow against pay equity at universities across the country. Second, it creates a mechanism whereby faculty can achieve pay equity within 90 working days. As we know, it is illegal to discriminate on the basis of gender, race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, and other protected categories. And New Jersey's has some of the best protections in the country, thanks to Governor Murphy's 2018 pay equity law. However, most people do not have the time, the energy, or most importantly, money to participate in a long drawn out legal battle. Our contract saves them this hardship and makes the law concrete and available to all faculty, not just faculty in protected classes I mentioned, but to everyone who is paid less for substantially similar work. This is what unions do. We take the law that largely has an abstract existence for most people and make it concrete and realizable for our members in a process that is neither time-consuming nor expensive. Unfortunately, as Becky has mentioned, the university has failed to honor this agreement. Since our contract was ratified and went into effect on July 1st, 2019, not one case has been settled, and there are some faculty who've been waiting over a year. I will use the words of the Reverend Martin Luther King, who said, quote, "Justice too long delayed is justice denied." I am deeply grateful to our current union leadership for their commitment to continuing the struggle and for their commitment to gender and race equity. They have been working over the last 15 months with management to try to get this program off the ground. Unfortunately, they have not found willing partners among members of the Bachi administration on the other side. This is why the 5 of us who are plaintiffs have come forward to be part of a lawsuit that can win economic justice, not just for us, but through our example for all faculty. We are fighting not because we are the most discriminated against or because our salaries are the lowest. We are all senior professors with job security at a unionized university. And we are speaking out and telling our stories because so many others cannot. Others who are in far worse situations than us and are more vulnerable. For example, there are non-tenure track faculty who are paid low wages and have a very heavy workload. Our union believes in the principle of protecting the most vulnerable. And what that means is that those of us who have seniority and job security are willing to step forward to advance the collective good. Over half a century ago, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her female colleagues at Rutgers Newark filed a class action lawsuit and won. The arc of history bends towards justice, and I believe that we will prevail. I'm also optimistic because last week I spoke to our new president, Dr. Jonathan Holloway, in my capacity as the co-chair of the University Committee on Diversity, Race, and Gender. President Holloway has laid out a bold new vision of inclusion, diversity, and equity for Rutgers. And in my conversation with him, I came to see that he is deeply committed to this vision and to equity. I am hopeful that this will translate in a rapid way and with urgency into a real shift in the institutional culture at Rutgers, which for too long, as Nikol laid out, has sidelined these issues. As a distinguished historian, Dr. Holloway knows better than I that justice delayed is justice denied. Let me make one last point before I come to a close. I love my job. I have great students, wonderful colleagues, and an amazing union. My colleagues and several people in the Dean's office at SCI, the new Vice President for Equity, Dr. Anna Branch, and others are working to change the climate for people of color. But real equity is possible only if the institution as a whole is committed to it. This is why the plaintiffs have brought this lawsuit, to redress unlawful pay practices at Rutgers that have gone on for far too long. Every faculty member deserves to be valued for the sum total of their contributions, research, teaching, and service, and to be paid equally for substantially equal work. Nothing less than that will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepa. Thank you. We're going to hear next from another one of our incredible, accomplished plaintiffs. Professor Nancy Wolff is Distinguished Professor in the Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy, and she's the Director of the Blaustein Center for Survey Research. Professor Wolff has been at Rutgers for 29 years. She's an economist by training, and she's a widely published and cited researcher. She's an influential scholar of public policy related to incarceration and rehabilitation. Nancy has served her profession and Rutgers University in dozens of roles and has received many awards for her research and service. Nancy?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your interest in this important issue. As Becky said, my name is Nancy Wolff, and I'm a distinguished professor in the Edward J. Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy. For nearly 30 years, I've been advancing the interests and values of Rutgers University through exemplary teaching, research, and service. But during that time, Rutgers did not safeguard my economic interests by paying me fairly. For at least 15 years, I have been consistently paid less than my male faculty counterparts who are doing substantially similar work. While I'm focusing on the past 15 years, it's important to note that it could be longer, but I don't have good data for the earlier years. Over these 15 years, I've pursued remedy for this inequity with some modest success, but the pay equity program negotiated by the AAUP-AFT union last year offered me hope to finally be paid equal to my male equivalents at Rutgers. In good faith, nearly 10 months ago, I submitted an application to the pay equity program, but have yet to receive a response to my application. It is my understanding that the planned response by the University Compensation Service, the group reviewing the applications, is wholly inadequate because it continues the normalization of unequal pay between female and male faculty who are doing substantially equal work. The solution is not to lessen the pay inequity, but to ensure pay equity between female and male faculty equivalents. By continuing to pay me unequally, I am being asked to continue to subsidize the university's active practice of unequal pay between female and male faculty. Conservatively estimated, I have already foregone over $500,000 in wages over the past 15 years. That translates into a $500,000 subsidy to Rutgers that has been used by Rutgers to pay my male faculty equivalents more. According to the New Jersey Equal Pay Act, this hidden subsidy scheme is illegal. I joined this lawsuit with 4 similarly aggrieved Rutgers female faculty to reveal this scheme and to require that Rutgers administration practice the values that we as faculty uphold in our classrooms and through our service and research by paying female faculty fairly for their consistently outstanding contributions to the mission, success, and reputation of Rutgers. We as a university cannot stand for social justice when we do not practice social and economic justice within our own community. While Rutgers has been willing to acknowledge my contributions to research and service mission of the university through promotions and awards, it has been unwilling to pay me the salary that those same promotions and same awards have yielded my male faculty counterparts. Pay equity should be the new normal of Rutgers. This is my hope. It is my hope that economic justice will prevail through our lawsuit and that our success will change what is normal in terms of pay equity at Rutgers moving forward. And let me move a little bit more to the personal, which makes me a little bit more uncomfortable. As with Deepa, I'm much more comfortable when I'm talking about my science than when I'm putting myself out in front of you all. But I'm willing to do this because I feel so strongly about this issue. But I'm gonna start it out by falling on the words of E.M. Forrester, who's quoted as saying, "How do I know who I am until I see what I do?" Over the past 30 years as a Rutgers faculty member, I have shown who I am, in part through my scholarship, which includes over 100 peer-reviewed articles, several books, and dozens of chapters and reports. I have also shown it through the quality of my teaching and through the over $25 million in grants and contracts awarded to me as principal investigator while at Rutgers. I have also shown who I am through my service work inside New Jersey and Pennsylvania prisons that has received numerous awards, including the Rutgers Class of '62 President's Public Service Award, which for the first time in its history, the selection committee doubled the monetary award to honor the quality of my service. That service, which spanned over a decade, included spearheading the establishment and management of peer-run community centers inside prisons, a monthly newsletter written by female residents, programs to help men and women heal from trauma while incarcerated, book clubs, yoga and meditation programs, a weight loss program, and a reentry readiness course, all of which were externally funded. At one point, and for many years, I directed a federally funded advanced research center while also doing over 20 hours of service work inside New Jersey and Pennsylvania prisons each week. I'm tired even just thinking about that. But who I am is not defined simply by what I do, but by the values that inspired that effort. I am motivated by the pursuit of excellence, by the integrity of character, and the fair and just treatment of all people. Rutgers has given me an opportunity for almost 30 years to prove who I am through what I have accomplished. And for this, I am very grateful. Over the years, I have chosen to stay at Rutgers, even after receiving several unsolicited competitive job offers, including an endowed chair at another university. I did not use these offers to leverage a merit raise because I firmly believe that merit can be measured reliably and accurately and compensated accordingly without outside offers. This is what the union's pay equity process sets out to do. Moreover, like Deepa, I believe that gaming the system should not be the way to achieve salary equity with our male peers. More to the point, I have remained loyal to Rutgers over the years, in part because I value my students and colleagues here. I value the research environment, I value my connections to the community, and I value the staff of the research centers that I have directed and currently direct. I have served Rutgers proudly and earnestly during my tenure, even when I knew that my contributions were undervalued and ignored. Please know that today is not one of my proudest days at Rutgers. I am deeply saddened that I have been compelled to seek legal remedy against my beloved university. But my loyalty will always weigh heaviest for values that adhere to principles of fair treatment. And because I am a senior, tenured, accomplished, and principled faculty member, I have a duty to stand up and speak up when I see wrongdoing. I am a party to this lawsuit because there is wrongdoing here. I have not, nor have the other 4 principled and accomplished colleagues who are also parties to this lawsuit, received fair compensation relative to our male counterparts. We have individually and consistently shown who we are to our students, to our colleagues, to our staff, to our deans and chancellors through our accomplishments and commitment to excellence for decades. Who we are is as clear as the wrongdoing. Who Rutgers University is will be apparent by what it does and does not do in response to this evidence of wrongdoing. All I know for sure is this is not how we treat women in a just and fair community. This is not how we treat women in a beloved community. I am hopeful that Rutgers administration will rise up and lifting up the economic welfare of female faculty in parity with their male counterparts by adopting a zero tolerance for pay inequity in both word and action. This is my hope through this lawsuit, And I thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you. I want to remind members of the press who are participating, if you have questions, you can type them in the Q&A, and we'll be able to ask our plaintiffs to respond. The final plaintiff speaking today is Professor Judith Storch. Professor Storch is Distinguished Professor of Nutritional Sciences in the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences. She's been at Rutgers for 28 years. Judith is an expert in lipid biology and biochemistry. She's the author of scores of articles and has received $11 million in funding as principal investigator on grants from the National Institutes of Health and from private funders. Thank you, Professor Storch.
Thank you, Becca. So yes, I'm Judy Storch. I'm a distinguished professor in nutritional sciences at Rutgers, New Brunswick. And my laboratory, which has trained dozens of undergraduate, graduate, and postdoctoral researchers, can be broadly classified as a biomedical sciences research lab. As Becca said, I've been funded continuously as a principal investigator by the National Institutes of Health for the entire time that I've been a faculty member at Rutgers. I've been invited to give over 150 research presentations, both here in the US and abroad. I'm the editor-in-chief of a highly respected scientific journal in my field, which, as you heard, is the Cell and Molecular Biology of Lipids, or fat. Recently, I was elected as a fellow of the American Society for Nutrition, the highest honor bestowed by the Society. In teaching and in service, my contributions to the university and my profession have been abundant, recognized, and rewarded. I'm deeply appreciative of Professors Deepa Kumar and Nancy Wolff for so eloquently communicating the clear rationale behind our participation in this legal action. I concur fully with their statements. I will just add a few points to their narratives. I'll start with a quote from my mother, who said the following to me when I called to tell her that I'd been promoted to full professor. "That's great, Judy, but if you knew you were going to work this hard, why didn't you become a real doctor?" What I've tried to let my mother know over the years is how thoroughly I enjoy being a, quote, PhD doctor, which is how she calls me, a professor, and especially a research active professor. That I have the most wonderful colleagues, that my students invigorate and challenge me, that I have the opportunity to explore and exchange ideas with brilliant people, and to do work that contributes to our collective health and well-being. The composite of my work in research, teaching, and service means that yes, I do work hard. So much so that I admittedly did not even open the emails from the union about the pay equity program, needing to fend off the never-ending avalanche of emails and focus on my many items on my to-do list. But then a colleague said to me, "You know, you ought to look at this program. I bet you'll find it enlightening." So one weekend, I decided to open the emails and have a look at the comparative salary data that the union had compiled. It's safe to say that I was stunned, floored, astounded at how much less I was being paid than the average of my largely male counterparts, namely distinguished professors in the biomedical sciences. And then I looked further and saw that in virtually every category, for every rank, in every department or program or school, women were being paid less than men. This struck me as clearly unjust. Justice, justice, you shall pursue, from Deuteronomy, is a central theme, central tenet that I was raised with and that informs my thinking and, I believe, my actions as an individual. I'm not a litigious person, to put it mildly. And in fact, this is all very new and frankly, quite uncomfortable for me. I've nevertheless come forward because I believe that this is the right thing to do. I'm deeply committed to my work at Rutgers. And as I said, I truly honor and admire my colleagues here. I like the deans of my school very much. In fact, I believe that my male colleagues are supportive of the just concept of pay equity for substantially similar work, and that they too would be dismayed to see the structural pay inequities that exist at our university. My hope is that by speaking out along with my sister plaintiffs, I might help bring to light the problem of pay inequity at Rutgers. I sincerely hope that the university will do the right thing, not just by the 5 of us, but for everyone who is paid less for doing substantially equal work as their peers. It is truly disturbing that marked pay inequalities still remain at the university, even 50+ years after RBG and her female colleagues at Rutgers filed the lawsuit and won. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Storch, and thank you to these 3 plaintiffs for sharing their thoughts and their motivations with us all today. And thank you to all 5 of our plaintiffs, all of whom are so deeply committed to their work, their students, their colleagues, and to Rutgers University. And I think that really came out today. If any members of the media want to put a question in the Q&A, we have a couple of minutes to take them. I also want to emphasize that we are fortunate. We're fortunate for many reasons to be the State University of New Jersey, but one of them is that we were able to bring this suit under the Diane Allen Equal Pay Act, which was a signature initiative of Governor Phil Murphy, but also of Senate Majority Leader Loretta Weinberg, who has fought tirelessly for equity, especially gender equity. Without their work, we would not have the opportunity to seek redress and to seek justice in this way. I think on that note, we want to thank you for listening. I personally, on behalf of our union leadership, want to thank our plaintiffs. This is not easy. These are folks who love their jobs and love their work, and all they want to do is get back to their work. So I thank you for your time, for your commitment, for understanding that with the security of tenure, you're able to speak out in a way that others cannot. And so I want to thank you all, and I want to wish everybody a good day. Take good care, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you so much.